Hello, and welcome back to another episode on the Unfiltered Healing Podcast. On today's episode, we are digging into the topic of circadian light and circadian health, and what that means in regards to health and vitality in your body. My guest today is Roudy, who is the owner and founder of Viva Rays, which is a company that has developed several different products to try and harmonize the different light cycles throughout the day to help our bodies get back into a healthy circadian rhythm with light. This episode is super powerful, and it is one that I've been anticipating podcasting for a while, just because I myself have been recently really researching the power of circadian light and getting into healthy light habits to actually help balance our hormones and to help balance our body more effectively. I love in this episode how Roudy goes through his own personal journey of being diagnosed with ADHD and all of these different, diagnoses, which we see in so many children and even adults now. And in reality, what it was is a improper light signaling pattern that he found out by actually living in a village where he had to get up with the sunrise and go to bed at the sunset and not being around any artificial light, and how that literally transformed his mood, his hormones, his chemistry in his brain and his body, and got him into a radical health. And so through that experience, he's developed some products to help us regulate and simulate what that is in the technology world that we now live in, and how to have a healthy relationship with that. We also go through in this episode how a lot of these blue light blocking companies are actually not working properly, because it's all about actually harmonizing blue light, not blocking it. And how a lot of prescription blue light blockers are actually scams. They're not really doing what they're supposed to be doing. And how we really need to unlearn some of these things that we've learned about the sun and how it's harmful. And actually how God created the sun for us to specifically heal our bodies, to signal our hormones. And we have gotten it all upside down as far as light and dark cycles. And that has created energy problems, sleeping problems, while people are now taking vitamin D and melatonin and all of these things. And in reality, what it is it's just getting back to a proper balance with the sun and light cycles, and how we are just exposed to so much artificial light and what that's doing to our bodies and health. So, super impactful episode. As he explains in this episode, it is one that you will want to listen more than once, because this information may be just a lot for you to unlearn. So I highly recommend you listen to this episode a couple times. And then he's also given us resources to a free ebook to go over some more concepts in depth if you want to learn more. And then additionally, I'm going to put in the bio, you get 10% off for all my listeners if you use the code Dr. Rachel, DRRACHEL, at his website, Viva Rays, where you can get some of these products that he mentions in this episode of transitioning the light throughout the day, which is just a whole different concept than any blue light blocker lens out there. And he explains all the differences in creating a really healthy light environment for our lives, for our hormones, for our health. So I know that you're going to enjoy this. When I started digging into these topics, because of just severe hormonal imbalances and seeing such dramatic changes with just changing our relationship with light and dark cycles. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Please like, share, comment, give it 5 stars, share it with your friends, share the word so that we can also share this amazing information as to why many people struggle and they're taking all these supplements, taking all these things, and in reality, it's just an imbalance in their hormone light regulation. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode.
What do you do to take care of yourself? Welcome to the Unfiltered Healing Podcast with Dr. Rachel Hamill.
I ain't Dr. Phil. I'll truly help you heal your mind.
Connect with alternative medicine innovators that will challenge and empower you.
It has the potential to change your whole life.
Create natural balance for both your body and mind.
Your health is very important.
All while uncovering the truth behind modern medicine.
This is crucial.
It's raw, it's real, and it's unfiltered. Here's your host, Dr. Rachel.
All right. Well, Roudy, welcome to the Unfiltered Healing Podcast.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for taking the time today. I'm not even sure where you are right now. We didn't even talk about that before we started chatting, because you travel all over. And so we really appreciate you taking the time to do this today. Where are you right now? Where are you from originally as well?
I was born in Lebanon, and I did
Okay.
quite a bit of traveling. By the age of 22, I moved to Africa to work on a project as an engineer for about 3 years, and then went to Europe, to the US, Canada. And right now, I've been living in Mexico for the past 2.5 years. I live on the west-south coast of Mexico in the state of Oaxaca, in a small town called Puerto Escondido. It's a surfing town right by the ocean. Super beautiful.
Wow. Yeah. What part of Africa were you in?
I was in a country called Guinea Equatorial, and
Okay.
specifically in a part called Malabo. It's an island that's part of Guinea Equatorial.
Is that northern or southern Africa?
No, it's actually central. Like,
It's central.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I've been to a few different places in Africa, but I don't know where that is.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool place.
Um,
It's the only place in Africa where they speak Spanish. And when I got
nice.
hired right after graduation as an engineer, the company gave me a challenge. They said I was going to be working with a bunch of different workers on site who only speak Spanish. So I had like 30 days to start being able to communicate myself and like 90 days to become fluent in Spanish. And I got super excited about the challenge, and I actually made that happen. And I'm grateful for it because now in Mexico, I'm like super fluent in Spanish. I could communicate everything here. So it's nice.
Yeah, that's probably just a reflection of how you work in your brain and giving a challenge and succeeding. That's pretty fast to learn a language. So commend you
Yeah,
for that.
to be honest, at that time, my brain was pretty broke. So I wouldn't say like I was in my highest peak of cognition and being able to,
Yeah,
during that time, I was really struggling.
yeah. Well, let's get into that a little bit. So before we talk, and jump into today's topic, which is going to be mostly about, circadian light and the power of it and the importance of it for the health of really our bodies, which, I could probably talk about for hours. I'd love if you would tell the audience just a little bit about yourself, what started this process for you, as you just mentioned, and, where you are now currently as you're the founder of a company promoting more or less what we'll be talking about in different parts today. Because most of us, in this field, we have our own journey and of mostly a need that then turns into some sort of solution to fill that need. And it sounds like you had to go through some of those things as well. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit of that, I would love to start with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Always reflecting back to my journey, I get goosebumps because it's hard sometimes to see how everything is connected and how every experience and
Hmm.
is actually sequentially leading the next event and the next growth and the next evolution. But always, as I sit back and reflect back to my story, I get goosebumps. Like, wow, like so grateful for every part of it. Though it was very tough. I was born in Lebanon, in the Middle East. It's a very tough country because there's been a lot of war, a lot of conflict, and it's ever since I was a kid. 3, 4 years old, at school, I was struggling with a lot of headaches. Used to feel a lot of agitation, eye strain, and inability to focus. And all I wanted back then, I remember very well, I had like this deep desire to leave the classroom and to be outside, sitting in sunlight and connecting with nature. So my teachers did not like this, and they had to figure out something. So they labeled me with ADHD. They said this kid cannot focus; he's an ADHD. They forced me back into this rigid educational system with all these artificially lit classrooms that literally felt like a prison cell than a place to learn. So I had to develop a strategy, and I was known as like a very intelligent kid in that sense because I would always get what I want in a way. So troublemaking became my only escape from that prison. And believe it or not, Rachel, I was asked to leave 7 or 8 different schools throughout my time at school. So it was a very like tough time for myself, my teachers, and even my parents. And fast forward a few years, I somehow landed myself in engineering school. I really enjoyed math and physics, and I was very like I did not have an opinion or like a deep desire of what I wanted to do. I had a conversation with a teacher, and he's like, "I think you should do engineering." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I'm gonna go do engineering." And by then, as I was in engineering school, I actually turned into a night owl. I stayed up all night, and I was completely useless and drained during the day. Felt like I've been chewed up and spat out by life. Always tired, never up for much, and I was very unmotivated both in my professional and my social life. And I remember the main image that comes to my mind is like this image of me like dragging myself through the day, literally as if I'm wearing something extremely heavy on my back. Now, the lowest point in that period happened when I was fired from my job as an engineer in Africa. And it was really difficult time for me. I was struggling a lot. I woke up the second morning feeling like a truck has ran over me. I was literally like paralyzed in bed, staring at the ceiling, and overwhelmed by sadness and profound fatigue. And in that moment, I literally couldn't bring myself to get up from bed, or I couldn't even find a compelling reason to do so. I was like really in a state of suicidal almost, and thinking, what's the meaning of life? Why am I here? Why do I need to actually find the energy to get up from bed? Like it's not worth it. So it was a very dark time, and I remember like a few days after that, I literally stumbled upon a quote from Albert Einstein, who played a phenomenal role in an indirect way in my life. But the quote said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting results. Wow. Like those words struck me like a bolt of lightning. Like it kind of my soul open and it put me like face to face with the truth that I needed to recognize about how I've been behaving. So I decided that it's time for change. I was no longer afraid to lose my career and to fit into a specific construct and to satisfy, the people around me who wanted me to succeed in my career. So I'm like, you know what? I hate my job. This is not for me. I decided to, leave my career. I packed my bags and I left everything behind. And my goal was to go on this unknown journey of traveling, doing different experiences, and to learn about health and wellness. I wanted to discover what's the true meaning of being well and find a way to elevate myself. So during my travels, I started learning from so many different health gurus and doctors, listening to podcasts, reading books, hiring different coaches. And every one of them told me something different. So it was this scene of eat this, don't eat that, take this supplement, no, take that supplement, take this vitamin. And to be honest, Rachel, as I said, my brain was pretty broken, and it was all too much
Yeah.
and extremely confusing to me. And to
Mhm.
be honest, I was very dedicated. So I started trying all these different diets in a very dogmatic way. So I would go like carnivore and like fully carnivore, go vegan. I would go pescatarian, fruitarian, like all these different diets. And I was buying all these
Yep.
expensive supplements. But to be honest, nothing seemed to help me. I was getting worse and worse by the day. So I remember sitting down and thinking to myself, "Oh my God, like why does it need to be extremely complicated?" And at that time, I was thinking it's probably only me. I don't think anybody else in the world is going through what I'm going through, and no one can understand me right now. And it's going through that scene.
Mhm.
And then this one night, um, I was completely lost in the galaxy of the internet, just like every night, like super quiet at night, doing research, watching videos. And I found this video by Dr. Jack Ruse. He's a neurosurgeon from the US. And
Yes. Mhm.
you're probably familiar with his work.
Yes.
And the video was titled "Artificial Light is Killing Us," and it's so
Mhm.
ironic because it was like around 1 a.m. in the morning. I'm blasted with all these LEDs, and I'm trying to listen to what Jack Ruth is saying about artificial lights, and my mind was so foggy and tired. Everything he seemed to say literally flew over my head. But the one line that stood out, which I was able to remember the second day when I woke, it said, "You can't get healthy in the same light environment that made you sick."
Mm.
So I'm going to repeat this. You
Mhm.
get healthy in the same light environment that made you sick. And that kept flashing into my consciousness the second day. I'm like, oh my God. Like what he meant by light environment is all the lights that we're exposed to all the time while being indoors, like LED lights, screens, televisions, phones, etc. And
Yeah.
having already tried to improve my health with food, supplements, and exercise without any long lasting benefits, I decided to take Dr. Cruz's words to heart. And I was sitting down with a friend who's a backpacker, and I'm sharing with him about my struggle. I'm like, how can I escape from artificial lights? And he's like, I think I have an idea. There's this website called Woofing where you could volunteer on organic farms with indigenous people up north. You go live with them literally. And I was like so impressed. I took a look at this website and I found this farm in northern Quebec in Canada. And I literally applied instantly. And it was this wonderful family, indigenous people from Quebec, who were farming the land using permaculture and biodynamic farming, which at the time I had no idea what that meant. And I got accepted. So I took my car, I drove for 7 hours to Quebec, and I arrived to this phenomenal place in a very rural area that is far off population. And for 6 weeks, I was sleeping in my little tent. And during the day, I was exposed only to natural sunlight and fire and
Yeah.
candlelight in the evening. So, Rachel, they did not have electric light on that farm.
Right. Mhm.
So, guess what? Within a matter of 3 days, I felt a transformation that I hadn't felt in 25 years. Literally, my intense headaches and eye strain disappeared. And having been told that I'm a night owl, or having been telling the story to myself that I'm a night owl, I started sleeping
Mhm.
shortly after the sunset to then wake up before the sunrise with no alarm clock, feeling so fresh, rested, energized, and exhilarated with a sense of joy that I've never experienced before. Like, wow, what is happening?
Yeah.
I was feeling on top of my world. And having been told that I'm an ADHD for my whole life, I started getting praised by those farmers for the level of focus I was showing on this on the fields. So in a way, those 3 days literally shook my past paradigm. Everything I knew about myself, what I told myself, the story I was continuously telling to myself, got shaken big time.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I started seeing myself through a whole new lens. Wow, I was no longer that ADHD kid. I was no longer that night owl that hate the mornings and can only access creative time at night. And I started feeling happy and joyful and energetic. And the biggest surprise to me is that for the most part, I wasn't taking any supplements. I wasn't using any expensive gadgets. So I was like, wow, like how could that be possible? Now, after coming back to the city, here's the thing: it's like sad, but within a matter of a few weeks, I fell back into my old terrible routine of staying up, scrolling on social media, watching videos at night, and guess what? Once again, waking up feeling exhausted, depressed, and unmotivated.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat down and I'm like, wow, like how could that be possible? So I decided to go and volunteer on another farm. And once again, within a matter of a few days, I started accessing restful sleep, phenomenal energy. So after engaging in those trips back and forth between farms and cities and noticing that my health is getting elevated on the farm and then I'm going down a deep, dark hole every time I go back to the city, that opened my eye and it helped me to start questioning all of the health and wellness paradigm. And I start noticing, I asked myself a very important question, like primarily, fundamentally, what is the main difference between when I go to the farm and the city? And I know all of those farmers up north, they had a quality of light in their eyes that I've never seen in the community of folks who were following dogmatic diets and so on. And I asked myself, like, what do they do differently? And the question was very clear. They spend a lot of time in natural lighting. They work with the earth and they're in touch with the earth all the time, so they're grounded. They eat seasonally. So in a sense, if you translate it to a language of light, they're eating food that is storing sunlight, that is the light that they're living under. And they eat at similar times every day. They're not exposed to any artificial lights at night. And they fast when the sun is down. So I was like, wow, okay. Uh, I must be up to something. And then that led me to a 7-year journey so far of studying the field of quantum biophysics and circadian biology. And it took me on this, fascinating rabbit hole of
So,
unlearning and relearning everything.
and that's really what it is. I mean, it's a lot of unlearning. And I think it's so powerful you starting your discussion with what you struggled with as a kid. Because when I, see patients and they come in and we talk about things, we go all the way back to stuff like really early on. And it's such a struggle now for parents with children. I mean, they're so quick to like diagnose them with these types of conditions and it's rampant, but you look back at the environment and the lifestyle like you're talking about, and you can start to like peel away the layers of what was actually driving your brain to react in that specific way. And I think if people could really understand, the foundational things like we're talking about as to what makes things work and how it was created, then, it works in the way. There's different personalities and stuff too. We're not talking about that, but specifically how it needs to regulate and function. We're so quick to be like, oh, well, why can't you like focus in this classroom under this environment? And it's so crazy to me as well. And we're seeing a big movement here, specifically in Southern California, of lots of parents putting their children in different types of programs where they're outside playing more, doing more nature activities and stuff. And I think it's just so amazing because really that's how our body is designed to function. And so I hope that people don't miss specifically that part as well that you talked about, that, a lot of these things are environmental things that have cause our brain and system and nervous system to react in a specific way. And you have just, formulated something specifically for you that has worked well, but it goes back to foundational principles. And so, can you talk a little bit in this evolution of your story and how it transcribed as well as to how you started learning about this concept of circadian health as you talk about the sunrise and sunset, because the sun has been a topic that has been really scrutinized for many years. And then that has led to, big pharma and some other companies making a money market out of it, as it likes to do. But we know the sun is like really important and vitally important for us. But for those listening, what exactly are you meaning specifically when you talk about circadian health?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the sun is the source of all life. All biological species on Earth are nourished by sunlight, and without sunlight, there wouldn't be life on Earth. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like during that 7 year journey where I went through different breakthroughs and different discoveries. And you spoke about how light is a very important fundamental force that has the power to change someone's behavior, and how a kid at school, literally the same kid with the same brain and with the same upbringing, will definitely behave in a completely different way if he was to change the environment. Now, why is that? During my time as I'm learning, I revisited this equation again from Albert Einstein, which I knew very well in my engineering training, but I never looked at it from that lens. And it's E equal MC squared. And just to break it down, it's very simple. E is energy or light, and M is mass or stuff, just like our bodies, the earth, everything around us that consists of mass. And C is speed or velocity. Now, this might sound like it's coming out of a science fiction movie, but here's what it actually means. E equal mc squared means that light is the same thing as matter. And when light slows down, it turns into stuff. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
E equal mc squared. So there's the velocity aspect that is determining how light behaves and when light turns into matter. So, in a sense, if you think about it, we are all made of light. And when light hits our eyes, it actually slows down. We have a substance in the eye called the vitreous in the eye, which is composed of water, collagen, and acid. And its main purpose is to slow light down so that this light energy is being used to manufacture and create all of the different hormones and brain chemicals that control the way
Mm-hmm.
we think, the way we feel, and the way we act. Light is manufacturing all of our neurochemistry that's controlling the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we act. And the type of light
Mm-hmm.
getting into our eyes is deciding how well we are sleeping, what mood we are in, how much energy we have, how well we can focus, and how much we can get done. So, in a way,
Mm-hmm.
it's changing the way we see ourselves and the world around us. And back to my story on the farm. Within a matter of 3 days, light and healthy light for the first time shook my old paradigm and challenged the toxic stories that I kept telling myself that my brain is broken, can't function very well, an ADHD kid, I'm a night owl. And I was lacking the neurochemistry that will allow me to think new thoughts. All of this takes energy. And where do we get that energy from? We get that energy from sunlight. When we replace
Mm-hmm.
light with scrolling on social media and being surrounded by LED lights and screens, we are depriving ourselves from the fundamental source of energy as designed to connect us with Mother Nature and to elevate us. And
Mm-hmm.
the challenge is that when we are in the cities, most of us get very little sunlight during the day, and we are bombarded by artificial light from our LED bulbs in the kitchen and the washroom, down the streets, down the walls, and the airports, on our computers, etc. And those artificial
Mm-hmm.
lights, they have not been designed with our health and wellness in mind. And
Yeah.
they technically mess up the whole body and make us feel terrible. So, with that being said, uh, there's one aspect of our biology that is not touched and profoundly impacted by the light that is entering our eyes. Now, only one small aspect is circadian biology, which is a very important aspect because getting a great night's sleep and waking up feeling refreshed and energized is something that doesn't happen by chance. It happens because we have a solid circadian rhythm. And for those of you who are not familiar with the term circadian, comes from the Latin word circa dia, which means approximately a day or 24 hours. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about this rhythmic 24-hour day and night that we all go through uh, on Earth when we rotate around the sun.
Yes.
And this rhythm exists in all animals, plants, and humans. We all undergo this change in the environment where the day becomes night and the night becomes day. And in order for us to adapt to this change, we have had to develop an internal clock that is sitting in the brain and is determining our behavior, right? Because if you think about it, back in the days when we were living in nature and when we were still connected to Mother Nature, uh, this change in the environment between day and night will dictate our behavior. It will determine whether we are alert and hunting and foraging, or resting and rejuvenating. And this clock not only controls our sleep and wake cycle, but also controls our detoxification system, our bowel movement, our reproduction, mood, digestion. So a healthy, in a person with a healthy circadian rhythm, they're supposed to wake up every morning and have a healthy bowel movement because you're getting rid of the toxins that you've accumulated at night. And supposedly it also happen pretty much at the same time every day. And that is what
Yeah.
it means to live in rhythm. So this clock is responsible for timing all of these very important biological functions to an optimal time of the day or the night during a 24-hour cycle. And it's creating structure and coherent communication between the billions of the cells in our body, creating a harmonious symphony. Now,
Yeah.
one analogy I like to use, which I find like people relate to it. We've all been to a musical symphony, right? And just like in a musical symphony, in order for the orchestra with many musicians to produce harmonious music, they need to be guided by a conductor who is reading the musical notes and giving instructions to the musicians on what to do. Now,
Yeah.
in our body, this conductor is the master clock in the brain, okay? And it reads the musical notes coming from sunlight and darkness. This is the musical notes that instruct our hypothalamus in the brain. And it's responsible for sending signals to the thousands or millions of musicians, like our cells and organs and glands, letting them know what to do and when to do what. And this will make all the difference between a harmonious symphony in our body, which translates into optimal health and wellness, or into a chaotic one that translates into chaos and illness. So, how is that related to light? This central clock relies on two primary signals to create this harmony, health, and optimal communication between ourselves. Now, what are those two optimal signals? Number one, sunlight during the day, and especially in the first 2 hours of the day. And when we say sunlight here, we're talking about regularity. We're not talking about some random exposure to sunlight in a random way. Well, what this central clock in the brain is looking for is a regular behavior of being exposed to sunlight at the same time every day as the sun is rising, ideally. Now, second main signal that the central clock is waiting for is the signal of darkness after the sun sets at a consistent time every day. Now, I hope you can start relate on how in our modern world we're breaking every rule that actually reset our circadian biology. Because most of us are not getting morning sunlight during the day. What do? We wake up, we turn on artificial lights, we go to the kitchen to make our coffee, we start scrolling on social media, we get all of this junk light into our eyes that deplete us rather than nourish us. And
Yeah.
on this first very important signal to our circadian clock to tell our brain that's actually daytime so that we can feel focused, alert, energized, and ready for the day. Now, the second big mismatch in our modern world is that after the sunset, what most of us do, we are surrounded by nasty artificial lights all the time. We're watching television, we're scrolling on social media, and all of this light is telling our brain it's daytime when it's actually nighttime. And this
Yeah.
results in the body secreting the wrong hormones at the wrong time. It will elevate our stress hormone at a time when we're supposed to have sleep hormone, testosterone, and other hormones that will allow us to repair and rejuvenate. So many people today talk about, anti-aging and longevity. We can't talk about longevity if we have a toxic light environment because it is literally controlled by light and dark signals.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is very true. I think the concept of, light and dark cycles now, we're thankful for technology. I mean, we're able to do this conversation today, right? But um, there is such a toxicity that has come from it. And people don't realize that there is, like you're talking about, such a difference in what the sun does and created to do in our body versus all of this artificial light that we are surrounded and really bombarded with all of the time, and how that specifically affects our rhythm, because there is a difference as well as, like you said, going in the sun and the specific like wavelengths of what happens with the sunrise versus waking up and turning on that specific type of light. Can you speak for just a minute on a little bit of the difference of what that is to someone that may just not understand? Well, light is light, and it's like, no, it's very different.
Yeah, absolutely. So in nature, light is information, and this information is meant to flow into our system in a very sequential way. So when we see the
Mm-hmm.
sun rising, or when we see the sun in general, what we're seeing is white light. But this white light is actually composed of layers of frequencies of light that come together,
Mm-hmm.
create this combination that we perceive as white light. Now, the moment the sun is rising off the horizon, this mixture of light is not complete yet, is not full yet. It's when the sun is rising, it's richer and higher in longer wavelength forms of light like orange, yellow, and red light. And as the sun starts slowly rising above the horizon, shorter wavelength frequencies of light like green and blue light start sequentially appearing. And this sequential appearance is projected and flow into our system, and it sends a signal from the brain to our adrenal gland to start secreting the hormones cortisol and adrenaline. And that is literally nature's most effective and most efficient cup of coffee. We are meant to receive that alert, high energy level via light.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Mm-hmm.
literally the most effective and the most sustainable way that allow us to have high amount of energy to get things done without feeling this drop down afterwards. And in this moment, when we get this healthy rise and spike in cortisol level, there's a internal alarm clock that's being set that activates about 12 hours from this very specific moment of viewing sunlight. And this will determine when the very important hormone melatonin will be released into the bloodstream at night. Now, melatonin is known as the sleep hormone. It's the hormone that allows you to start feeling drowsy and ready for bed. But it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
more than this. It's the highest
Mm-hmm.
antioxidant in nature. When we eat
Mm-hmm.
food that is rich in antioxidant, one molecule of this antioxidant could deal with one free radical at a time. Whereas it's known that one molecule of melatonin actually deals with 5 to 10 free radicals at a time. So melatonin, naturally produced melatonin via viewing light during the day and blocking artificial light at night, is 5 to 10 times more powerful and more effective than any antioxidant that we may get from fluids. Also,
Wow.
melatonin is anti-cancerous and it boosts our immune system. And it's the primary signal that tells all of our body that it's time to start activating the programs of repair and rejuvenation, where the body is starting to recycle old cells, dead mitochondria, and replace them with new mitochondria. It's the time when we clean our brain, when we clean our organs and our heart. And it
Yeah.
would make all the difference between waking up feeling fresh, rested, clear minded, able to think freely and creatively or not. Even if you're getting 8 hours of sleep, if you're not waking up first in the morning, springing out of bed, feeling a sense of clarity and ability to think clearly, all of this means is that your brain is not able to clear itself and to clean itself from all of the inflammation and metabolic waste that happens as a result of living and eating and breathing and so on. The lymphatic system in the brain is activated at night when we sleep in response to darkness, and during that time
Mhm.
we get enough darkness at night and we get a proper melatonin signaling. The cells in the brain shrink by about 60%, and that increases the space between the cells, allowing the cerebrospinal fluid to move and to flush out all the toxins and all the accumulated waste. And literally, that is what allows us to wake up in the morning feeling that sense of vigor, motivation, inspiration. That is what allows us to think outside of the box and to create. We need to be able to clean ourselves at night in order to have a vigorous, vital, vibrant day.
Yes, and I think because people are starting to learn more about melatonin and all of these different hormones, then they just start incorporating taking melatonin instead of fulfilling some of these things that you're actually talking about, which is actually producing it on your own and getting the healthy light cycles. Because if you're just taking a hormone, you're still not fixing, the pathway neurologically, hormonally, circadian wise. And that's why I personally don't like people taking melatonin and that type of stuff, because it starts to shut down some of those cycles. And I think it's also important to talk about, as you get up and you're getting, the morning sun or sun throughout the day, there's also this problem of then people still being light deficient because they're wearing sunglasses and they're putting on sunscreen. They're covering their whole entire body because there's this fear then of the sun and cancer and all of these like things that they've been programmed into their brain. And so I think it's also important to mention as well as it's a healthy relationship with light too. Like we have to be in these times and regulating, but also you have to, like he was talking about initially, unlearn some of these things that you've been told that the sun is your enemy. And we're trying to reiterate the fact that it's really not. It's needed for every single part of our daily function. And so I think it was important to mention that part as well.
Yes, absolutely. Talking about melatonin pills, it's so easy to monetize those things and to start creating, an industry out of the fact that melatonin is a very powerful anti-cancerous antioxidant molecule. However,
Mm-hmm.
we got to remember that melatonin is a molecule that is produced by the body endogenously i- in response to a very specific behavior. And we can't deny and disregard that behavior, put it in trash, and just start getting melatonin exogenously, via a bottled company that is selling us pills. What we need
Mm-hmm.
to understand is that those behaviors actually go way beyond the melatonin molecule. Those are behaviors that
Yeah.
connect us to Mother Nature. And it goes way beyond melatonin itself. So, for example, morning sunlight, particularly UVA light, which shows up about 60 to 90 minutes after the sunrise, it's providing the energy to convert the amino acid tryptophan into serotonin and melatonin, and tyrosine into dopamine. Okay, now this melatonin, which is the hormone of darkness, is actually produced in our eyes in response to morning sunlight. It's being stored in our pineal gland, and it's only released at night into our bloodstream in response to darkness. Once again, this interaction with this universal rhythm of light and darkness is dictating how our body is producing and manufacturing its neurochemistry. And when we put the behavior in the trash and we start focusing only on those neurochemicals, we're really like zooming in and disregarding the whole image, because it's not about the neurochemical, it's about our connection, our environment that will naturally produce not only one but a bunch of neurochemicals that will work for us rather than against us. And they could work against us when we are disregarding the primary behavior that will connect us to nature. And what do I mean by this? So for most people, it's easier to think, okay, I'm going to take a melatonin pill and disregard this whole story about getting morning sunlight and blocking artificial light at night. Yes, you can do this. But when you do this and when you expose your eyes to artificial light at night, cortisol is going to be very high in your system. And it's going to shut down the effect of melatonin on your body. Melatonin will not do any work. And by the time cortisol goes down and melatonin, or the rest of what is what's left in your body, and melatonin is doing some work, we're almost coming towards the morning time where you're working against your circadian biology, and that melatonin cannot be working effectively. It needs to work effectively during the time when it's completely dark outside. So with all that being said, the industry is telling us to put sunglasses. And what sunglasses do, they block 100% of UVA and UVB. Now, why would you want to block UV if UV is known to actually produce serotonin, melatonin, and dopamine in your system? And dopamine is this miraculous molecule that gives us the motivation and inspiration to go after what we really want in life. Dopamine allows us to sit down and pay attention. It allows us to think outside of the box. It enhances our cognition and memory. It makes us better thinkers. It makes us better at questioning the status quo. And we could argue that there are people who don't want you to question the status quo. There are people who want you on a very low dopamine level, so you stay in a state of consumption, and that you could buy anything that is presented to you. Now, nature does the opposite. Nature nourishes you, and sunglasses will also block you from producing proper amount of serotonin. There's a whole industry, with depression and so on, selling people all kind of bullshit. And when we're actually able to go outside, get morning sunlight in our eyes, and naturally increase our serotonin level, which induces a sense of calmness, of inner of connection to the world around us. So UV also, which is blocked by sunglasses, trigger the production a molecule called POMC, propiomelaanoprotein, which is derived of literally 241 amino acids that can become so many different hormones and neurochemicals that the body needs. One of which is beta endorphin, which is the feel-good hormone and a natural painkiller. It's a natural opioid. And we all know that in the United States, we have, an epidemic of people who are addicted to opioid. Why is that? If we can actually be in sunlight and produce this natural opioid, nature has designed us in a way to be addicted to her, because when we speak about nature, we have the tendency to think about this phenomenon that is outside of us, this tree on the left side of me, or this river on the right side of me. But the truth is, nature is our nature. It's one with us. We are one with nature, and we cannot thrive. We cannot function at our optimal state if we disconnect ourselves from nature. And if we think about it in today's world, most of the things that we engage with, whether it's sunglasses or sunscreen or like all of these illusional industries that have been built to make money off people who are not able to think of for themselves, it's these disconnecting us from Mother Nature. They're robbing us from our resourcefulness and our ability
Yeah.
to think for ourselves, to feel good, to feel joyful, to feel harmonious, all of which are inherently our uh, our rights. It's, we are here to feel those things. We're not here to suffer, to feel bad, and to feel sick, and to feel ill. I think all of illness and disease is a direct result of unbalanced actions that we ourselves choose to engage with, either from ignorance or from fear and and disconnection from ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as you're on that topic of, we got down a little rabbit hole, but, um, the same thing, concept of melatonin is also the same concept as we talk about this of like vitamin D as well. It's the same concept as there's massive deficiencies, regardless if people are actually absorbing it or not, which is another topic. But there's massive deficiencies in vitamin D as well. And it's the same as melatonin. Individuals just then end up taking copious amounts of vitamin D every single day to try to combat, what they're not getting in the lifestyle that they've adapted themselves to. And so it's the same kind of concept, they're wearing, even if they get outside, they're wearing all of these things. There's also the concept of different skin types. Like, you're a little bit darker than my skin. And so there's going to be different needs based on that to help support our each unique bodies and systems as to how much will need to achieve kind of the same results, right? And so it is about also a sense of customization here, that you're working with what was created for us to help us thrive and live, and working with it, not against it. And hopefully for those listening, this is starting to kind of peel away some of those layers of fear and just misconception about what we've been told and what we're doing and what we've been utilizing and doing. Personally, I would say, as I started to learn about circadian rhythms in regards to hormone health, which you've brushed on a little bit here with melatonin and some other hormones. And you also talked about, staying up late through your life and how that just disrupted a lot of different things, which a lot of people do. What interested me the most in is I'm seeing so many of my patients with, significant hormone challenges getting a lot more balanced, just changing some of these light dark cycles that you're talking about. And people don't think about energy increase from doing that. And it's absolutely true. Like, you should wake up feeling energy when some of these circadian rhythms are balanced. And so I thought it, talking about Dr. Cruz and learning about all this, I thought it was super fascinating just how some of these very basic principles can help regulate some of the most difficult hormone cases, just because we're going with what naturally is supposed to happen. And I'm sure, with your company that you've developed, which we'll get into next, and the difference of that, I'm sure you hear lots of like stories and reviews and cases of people like noticing some of these trends as well as, wow, like I'm sleeping better, my energy is better. And this is all going back to just these foundational principles of how the sun light relationships work with the brain into the hormones. So are you guys seeing people give you feedback that route as well with what you guys are doing?
Absolutely. I mean, what keeps me going every day is viewing those phenomenal reviews from people over and over again, sharing how they were able to get rid of all of their medication after suffering from years of insomnia and being able to restore perfect sleep, sleep for 8 hours, waking up feeling refreshed and energized. Within a few
Mm-hmm.
weeks of incorporating the light and darkness wisdom of starting to being exposed to more sunlight during the day and blocking artificial light at night. Even back in
Yeah.
the days, about 4 or 5 years ago, when I was just starting to get into like producing lenses for my own and experimenting in my own garage and so on, I was in touch with my mom, which at the time she was still in Lebanon. And back then she was really struggling because she was struggling with insomnia and she was accepting 1 to 2 hours of sleep. And it has been the case for her for years. So you can imagine how it feels to be in a state where you haven't slept for 5 or 6 years, and the best night's sleep you could get is 2 to 3 hours. So obviously, she was starting to lose her hair. Her cognition was very low. She wasn't able to think. She was in a state where she was counting the days and thinking, "Oh well, there's nothing I can do about this." Um, you know, it's such a natural thing as we grow older to fall into those unfortunate states. And
Mm-hmm.
speaking to her doctor didn't make it any better because he said, there's nothing we can do. I mean, he was giving her, prescribing sleeping pills to her, and then he came to a point where he actually told her to sleep, to drink alcohol before bed, so that it could put her to sleep. And hearing that, I was like really frustrated about this advice. And I'm like, Mom, I think I'm up to something learning about light. And I asked her one question. I said, "You trust me?" And she said, "Yes, of course." I'm like, "Okay, I want you to do exactly what I'm telling you. I'm sending you those pairs of glasses, and I want you to wear the different lenses at different times." I gave a full explanation, and I said, "You need to couple this with morning sunlight and with viewing sunlight at different times of the day." And after 4 or 5 days, my mom calls me, and I pick up the phone, and her voice was very different from the time she said hello. I noticed like a sense of vigor that I haven't heard for a while. I'm like, "Whoa, mom! Like, what's going on? How's your sleep?" She's like, I can't believe it. I'm sleeping for 8 hours again." And she had like tears in her eyes. It was very emotional for her. But long story short,
Yeah.
and fast forward, my mom is in Mexico right now. She started her first business. She's learning English and Spanish at the same time. Her hair is like literally bigger than my hair. Her hair grew again, and her skin is like she's an absolutely different woman. And to be
Yeah.
honest, I do believe that we all have that same power because my mom didn't do any crazy stuff and didn't take all these, crazy bottled stuff. All she did is she tapped back into her innate power by reconnecting with nature, getting more sunlight, blocking artificial light at night, changing her behavior so much so that she became really interested and looking forward to get that restful night's sleep, to sleep early, to take care of herself. So yeah.
Yeah, it's super powerful, and oftentimes we're the ones that help change our families, so it's a beautiful picture. Um, Now, one of the things that, people talk about a lot in this artificial light sphere is also, blue light. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, as you're developing some of these products, I think you said in your garage, which is great. And, you're learning about those different colors in the sun and how that's vital throughout the day for our brain and our hormones. Um, What's kind of the difference if we just talk about blue light, for instance, about, you know, getting blue light blockers, say people get them in like their prescription glasses that they have, because they've heard it's bad. And so they get blue light blockers in their prescription glasses. And as an engineer in your mind, what was kind of the process of developing some of these products? Because there's also like a ton of blue light blocker products out there now. And I'm sure a majority of them aren't really doing all that much because your company, as I know, is, basing it off of research and working with specific things. So can you kind of like demystify a little bit about that for people who are also meaning well and trying to incorporate some of these practices like you're talking about, specifically, I guess, with just blue light, and how they also may still be misled because some of these things aren't really achieving what they need to achieve?
So yeah, that's a great question, Rachel. I'm glad you asked this question, and it's my intention to talk to the listeners about a little bit about how I discovered all of this. What I want everyone listening to go away with is understanding that blue light is not good or bad. It's actually relative, and there's nothing in nature that is really good or bad. Everything in nature is relative, and it will depend on how we're interacting with it. So that's a very important point that I want to make, and I want everybody to understand, because today we constantly hear, oh, blue light is bad, we need to block blue light. The truth is, blue light is not bad. There's a lot of blue light and sunlight, and it's extremely invigorating and important for us to expose ourselves to at the right time of the day. Now, another important thing, I also want to expose very quick how and in which context blue light becomes bad, and what's the harmful and bad effects that we experience in our biology without even realizing. So basically how I discovered blue blockers, um, and how I realized that blue light is not evil. After I was on the farm, I was again experiencing those states of flow, infinite energy, creativity, and I actually never thought that I would feel depressed and disoriented again. But again, I shared in my story that when I came back to the city, and within a matter of a few weeks, I went from this blissful, harmonious symphony to a dissonant and tuneless one. Sleep and wake cycles start struggling again. So at this point, I asked myself an important question. I'm like, is there a way to have the freedom to live in this modern world while being in alignment with ourselves and with nature, and while continuing to feel good? And this question led me through a journey of extensive research, and I was trying to find a solution. Okay, so when I'm coming back to the city and learning about light, I was able to maximize my healthy light during the day. All great, but the time the sun sets, I found myself exposed to all kinds of artificial lights, and it was throwing my rhythm. It was impossible for me to maintain that nice, strong rhythm that I was accessing on the phone.
Sure.
So I learned about blue blockers, and I instantly bought clear lenses. And I believe that those are the ones you're referring to when you're talking about prescription, because anytime right now you go to your optometrist office, they're going to tell you, oh, do you need a blue blocking coating added to your prescription? And you probably pay $200,
Yeah.
$250 for this coating. Now, I fell into that same that same trap of like the clear blue blockers. Surprisingly, even I'm like an engineer, and I understand the physics of light very well. At that time, I didn't think it through at all. And after trying those clear blue blockers for a few weeks, I didn't experience any benefits. And then what I quickly realized is that those clear lenses were a marketing gimmick. And why is that? Because they blocked the blue purple light up to 420 nanometer in frequency, which is not emitted by LED bulbs and screens. Anybody who has a color mirror, you take a measurement of your LED bulb, you will see that the LED bulb starts their emission at 430 nanometer, they peak at 455 and they go down. And the clear blue blockers, they block blue purple light up to 420 nanometer. So the unwanted light was passing through the lenses. And it's literally, if you want to visualize it, it's as if you are rinsing your quinoa in a pasta strainer. the quinoa will end up passing through the holes because you are using the wrong filter. And
Yeah.
this is why clear blue blockers are basically pointless and inefficient. And for anybody listening, if you wear prescription and you go to your optometrist office and they tell you, hey, we can add this blue light coating for $200 extra, say no, because it's a waste of money. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Now, shortly after that, I learned about the yellow tinted glasses and bought some. And to be honest with you, I started wearing those yellow tinted glasses day and night, anytime I'm exposed to artificial light. And what I instantly noticed is that my eye strain disappeared. Like, oh wow, I'm up to something there. However, few weeks after, I started experiencing unexplainable drops of energy, and I didn't know why. So during the day, I would be like working on my computer, having my yellow tinted lenses, and I would start feeling fatigued, and like I would start designing to go for a nap, and I'm like, shit, I just woke up like 2 hours ago. How come I want to go for a nap? And then on the other side, at night, I was still feeling stimulated, and I wasn't feeling the rise of melatonin that is giving me that deep desire to go to bed. So at this point, I'm like, like what's going on with this blue light blocking stuff? And I realized, what I quickly realized is like blue light is not good or bad. Many people say blue light is evil, you need to block it. But in fact, blue light during the day is extremely important because it stimulates our brain more than any other colors. It boosts our energy levels, activates our thyroid hormones, elevate our mood, regulate our circadian rhythm. So obviously, there's a lot of blue light and sunlight. But if you look at the spectral curve of sunlight, you see a lot of blue light that is always balanced and proportionate with the other frequencies of colors like yellow, orange, and red light. And in nature, all of nature, literally every system in nature is composed of polar opposites that interchange in balance. So you have two forces that are equal and opposite, and they are interchanging. The problem happens is when we create systems that are not interchanging in balance. So what do I mean by this? When we are exposing ourselves to screens or LED lights during the day, though we need blue light, the problem is that the blue light that is emitted by those screens and LED lights is not even full spectrum blue light. It's a very narrow spike in blue at 455 nanometer, and it's not balanced and proportionate with the other polar opposites of colors that are meant to balance blue light in nature. Because if you think about it, Rachel, your ancestors and my ancestors have never ever been exposed to any form of blue light without having an equal and opposite force of orange and red light balancing blue. Now, why is that important? Because blue light in nature is degenerative. It increases oxidative stress and reactive oxygen species, which is not inherently bad because the exercise also increases oxidative stress. And when exercise does so, when we go and rest, we actually stimulate our immune system and we stimulate the production of antioxidants, which is great. But what happens if we exercise 24 hours without resting? We will end up hurting ourselves. And this is the state we are in today's world. We are exposed to blue light chronically 24/7, regardless of the time of the day. And this is increasing reactive oxygen species and oxidative stress and causing an abnormal amount of inflammation in our eyes and in our brain. Okay. Now, how do we solve this problem? We need to start thinking about the time of our exposure. Now, knowing that we need blue light during the day, obviously, if let's get it from sunlight because that's the ideal way of getting that blue. Because sunlight is balanced with the polar opposite. Now, when we find ourselves in front of screens and LED bulbs during the day, what do we do? Again, I said I was wearing those yellow tinted glasses, which are designed to block 100% of the blue at 455 nanometer. But I was feeling tired and exhausted. Now, why did I feel tired? Because obviously, when you wipe out all of the blue at 455, you're also wiping away a lot of the blue turquoise at 480 nanometer. which is an essential frequency that stimulates a protein in the eye that tells the brain that it's daytime. And without this frequency, the brain thinks that it's nighttime and it decreases your energy levels during the day. And that's exactly why we came up with our daytime lenses, which is a blue light harmonizer rather than a blue light blocker. Because we don't want to blue during the day, but technically we want to harmonize it because it's unbalanced. And what these glasses do, they decrease the sharpness of the 455 nanometer frequency and they spread it across the spectrum. So you're getting more green, yellow, and orange light. And that is out the amount of blue light that you're getting in your eyes during the day from your screens and from your LED lights. Now,
Yeah, and then you have different colors of them throughout the day as well, right?
absolutely, because again, one of the traps that I fell into before is thinking that I need to block blue light in the same way all day, which is absolutely unrealistic. Why is that? Because when you are out in nature, you are, as the day goes and the sun moves from the horizon up to solar noon back down, you're exposed to different color temperature of light and to different amounts of blue light, which tell your body about the time of the day. So the light is dynamically moving. It's never static. Now, as humans, we like to simplify things and we like to package things in an isolated manner. So we're like, oh yeah, like blue blockers, wear it all day, and it's gonna solve your problem. But it doesn't work like this. And this is exactly why after the sunset, in nature, there's no blue light whatsoever. So the moment the sun is setting, okay, what happens then is uh, the blue and green light start slowly fading away until the sunlight moves into darkness. And light is information. And what this specific sequence tell our brain and our nervous system is that the day is ending. And therefore, our bodies start preparing to manufacture the right pharmacology or inner pharmacology that will allow us to prepare for a restful night's sleep. Now, the problem happen is that when we come back home, we're exposed to the second sun from our LED bulbs and screens. And the second sun will tell the brain, oh no, it's daytime again. And it will completely disrupt our rhythm and cause us to be in a stressful mode and increase our cortisol, etc. And this is why it's important then to have a technology or a tool like the Viva Rays evening glasses, which are engineered to mimic the exact color temperature of a bonfire at 1700 kelvins. Because this is the light that we've been exposed to after the sunset for thousands of years. And this light is known to not disrupt our circadian biology. And why? Because basically the lenses or the fire, they have the fire, for instance, has very little amount of blue light, and it's dominant yellow, orange, green light. And what that will do is it will eliminate all of the blue and it will keep enough green so that you can still function and do your evening activities without feeling very sleepy, right? Because if it's fall or winter time and the sun is setting around 3 or 4 or 5 p.m., you most of us will still have a lot of things to run around and do in the day. And if you block all of the blue and all of the green and decrease the brightness like the nighttime lenses Viva Rays does, you're gonna be sleepy before 4:30, which is not practical. So that's why we have evening lenses, which you're supposed to wear right after the sunset until 1 hour before bed. You remove your evening lenses, you clip on your nighttime lenses, and nighttime lenses block all of the blue, all of the green, and it decreases the brightness by 20 times, which is a very important feature that most blue blockers don't even integrate, because brightness of light has equally a very negative impact on our circadian clock at night.
Yeah, and I think the color, transition is very brilliant because I tried some beforehand as well, and like you said, people and yourself didn't really feel a shift. So not only is it that you're not just blocking blue light, you're really harmonizing it together in this full spectrum of light. And then you're also adding more of the transitionary colors throughout the day into the night. And if people, also, you're not around artificial light, then you don't have to wear them. You want to take breaks and stuff during the day as well. But the transitionary part is so amazing. My question to you is, and I think I've emailed your information about this, and I think maybe you're in the process of developing it. But I think the difficulty a little bit here is for people that have to wear prescription glasses. And obviously, Viva Rays is brilliant and we love it, but it's not prescription yet. And so it's how do we how do we functionally help these people with a process like this? And maybe you're in development of this, which would be amazing. Because I've just been telling them to at least get some of that yellow in their prescription glasses for when they wear them during the day to calm down some of it, and then maybe transition into your nighttime ones during the evening when they maybe don't need to wear their prescription glasses as much. And then, getting rid of the blue light blocking that all of the prescription really does. And so would you say that would be a good method, or is that totally off? Or what would you add to that for people that, maybe can't use this without prescription yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually have great news for you. I'm surprised you don't know, but we actually offer our glasses prescription.
Oh, great.
We make all type of prescription. And all people need to do is upload their prescription information or type their information on our website, and we make their lenses in prescription. And primarily, one of the things we really wanted to solve is for someone who's wearing prescription lenses, they're wearing them inside and outside. And when they go to their optometrist's office, they make their lenses in prescription. Their prescription lenses are inherently designed to block 100% of the UV and of the blue-purple light. Remember, we spoke about clear lenses blocking the blue-purple. Now, this is magic because when you're outside with your prescription, you're not exposing your eyes to UVA, UVB, and blue-purple light. You're cutting yourself off from absolutely necessary energy that the body uses to transform enzymes and amino acids into neurochemicals and hormones that we spoke about: dopamine, serotonin, beta-endorphins, POMC, etc. So it's absolutely tragic to be outside in the sun wearing prescription lenses that block UVA, UVB, and blue-purple light. So we even came up with a technology called the 4-in-1. And what we're doing is we're making prescription lenses for people that allow 60 to 70% more UVA and UVB to pass through the lenses. And then they will have their 3 clips, daytime, evening, and nighttime, that they will use anytime they are exposed to artificial lights. So their base frame is now for outdoors when they're driving their car or walking their dog, so they don't need to think about it. It's happening at a subconscious level where they're getting all the healthy light in their eyes. And now they have their 3 clips, daytime, evening, and nighttime, to protect themselves from artificial light. Now, one more thing I wanted to add is that when we speak about artificial light, primarily the main scene is that we talk about circadian biology and how artificial light disrupts our sleep and increases cortisol at night. But this extends into so many different areas. So, for instance, artificial light at night increases our blood glucose level, literally without eating anything. It has been shown that without putting anything in your mouth, expose your eyes to blue light, your blood glucose will spike up and crashes down. And this will cause you to become more emotional. Because we all know when your blood glucose level is chaotic, our emotion and our thinking becomes chaotic. And oftentimes in those states, it's in this time when you feel this like weak willpower and you open the fridge and you start munching on all kind of sugar and carbs. Also, artificial light causes you to become leptin resistant and to gain more weight. And leptin is this hormone that sits underneath the skin, and it's the hormone that tells the brain that we have enough energy levels and that we are feeling satiety, that we're feeling full from food. And when melatonin rises at night in response to darkness, leptin is supposed to travel into the hypothalamus in the brain and to upregulate our thyroid hormone, which means that it will allow us to burn fat at night in the most efficient way while sleeping. Now, what happens is we expose our eyes to artificial light at night, we block that leptin no longer travels into the hypothalamus in the brain, and this will decrease our capacity or our natural capacity to burn fat at night while sleeping. And since artificial light, blue light in particular, increases inflammation, it will actually start blocking that signal between the leptin and the brain when inflammation increases, and it will make us leptin resistant. And what this what it means is that no matter how much we're eating, there's no signal that is telling our brain we have enough energy and we're feeling that satiety, so we're wanting more food. And on the other side, blue light increases ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. So all of which creates it before eating more carbs, eating more sugar, eating at the wrong time, not having the capacity to burn fat, and also when we are leptin resistant, the body naturally decreases our desire to exercise because we're thinking that we don't have enough energy reserve and therefore exercise is not a good thing to do.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed definitely, especially wearing the night ones when I did, was some of those things you just mentioned, like decrease in, that nighttime feeling of snacking, all of those things that are like more demotivational things. And it's because your brain's confused as to what time of the day it even is. And so I think it's and now there's all of these topics more and more practitioners are talking about. I think because of Jack Kruse and his research is all this leptin resistance and all these hormone and problems, and it goes back to when are these hormones secreted and what's going on with your light relationship. And I think as we begin to close this discussion, I think it's just a necessity at this point as to, in the world that we live in with all of this artificial light and everything, what you found is so brilliant is a way to have a healthy relationship with it. And so, the products that you've created are to help facilitate some where we can still maintain some of what, we're doing and called to do and really have to do in a sense, but we can create a healthy relationship with that. Briefly, for sake of time, do you have any other like big tips as far as how to transform some of our light environments as well as incorporating, kind of this 3 light system that you have with some of your products? Do you have any other specific tips that you like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, first thing first is the most important step is waking up and going outside facing east and getting that sunlight in our eyes for at least 15 to 20 minutes. And if it's cloudy, we're spending more time than 30 or 40 minutes outside. Anytime we're exposed to artificial light inside, wearing the Viva Rays daytime glasses. Also, if I'm in an environment where I have a lot of windows and I could get a lot of more natural light dominating artificial light, then I don't need the Viva Rays glasses. That's in that case. What's really important then is to open the windows, allow the natural light to come in, and on your screen you could use a software called f.lux, and it will actually filter out that intense blue light from your screen. Which is great. Now you're getting natural light in your eyes. You're filtering out the artificial light, and it will work like golden for you. The thing I would say is staying in the consciousness of taking sun breaks every 2-3 hours, right? So if we're inside, we're working, we can all make like 5 to 10 minutes to go outside and expose ourselves to as much sunlight as possible. If it's cold, if the sun is not there, remember the sun is there. It's hiding behind clouds. You are still getting a ton of infrared light that's reflecting off trees and off different objects when you go outside. So when it's cloudy, it's even more important for you to step outside. So remember, like many people, they have the consciousness of like, let's go and take a cigarette break. Let's make it a sun break instead. Watching the sunset, extremely important. Coming back from sunset, wearing Viva Rays evening glasses and then switching to the nighttime glasses. And I would say, if you have the ability in your home, try to shut down all overhead lighting and replace them with Himalayan salt lamps. Position those lamps at floor level, which will stimulate your protein in the eye in a much less than if they were coming from overhead lighting. And yeah, I think that's it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Those are great tips. All things that I've incorporated over the years as well, which really helps. Natural light is best. I love these topics because it really does go back to basics. There's so many like biohacking technologies now, and really, I mean, those things are helpful, but it's really just refreshing and great to chat about, what was really created for us and how to get back to some of these basic things that you've explained phenomenally in this episode today. Do you have any last words that you'd like to impart, or maybe one thing you wish you would have known, going back now? Any last final closing
Yeah,
words?
because I guess one thing that we didn't talk a lot about in this episode, which could probably be another episode on its own, that I wish I knew back then, is the importance of building our melanin. And melanin is goes way beyond, the natural compound that allows us to tan. I could talk, hours and hours about melanin, but melanin is the darkest substance in this universe, and what this means is like it acts like a black body radiator. It actually absorbs all frequencies of light, and what this means is the more melanin we have in our body, the more we're able to absorb, store, assimilate, and make use of light energy and in order to create life. So, with that being said, the most practical way of building melanin is being out in the sun when UVB light is present. That's solar noon light. And we all have different skin types. So, we really need to be aware of how we build our melanin in an intelligent way. But I know people from
Yeah.
Northern Europe with the lightest skin that can now tolerate being hours in sunlight. They've built their melanin, and they have a massive capacity to store and assimilate light, which is completely transformational. I don't know of any health, tip that I've implemented in my life so far that is more efficient and more powerful than the simple fact of someone building their melanin.
Yeah, super foundational, because it goes back to that like fear thing of the sun and burning and all that misconception. But you can build like a sun callus, they call it, like you talk about, and you can build up and you can facilitate more of that to get more of the healing power of the sun in our body. Again, thank you so much for your time. I want to give a moment to shout out to your company. How do people find you? Do you have any more inventions in the pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. So I also recognize that we spoke about a lot, and it could be
Mhm.
overwhelming for someone who's learning about this topic for the first time. So what I want to reiterate,
Sure.
having worked with so many people, it's very simple, and it's seeming simplicity that could overwhelm us sometimes because we're thinking in a we're used to think in a more complex way. So what I would recommend is trying to expose yourself to this information over and over and over so that it goes
Yeah.
beyond, memorizing it and registering it upon the brain to actually assimilate it and digest it and make it part of your lifestyle. So try to listen to this
Mhm.
episode more than one more time. Take a
Yeah.
look at other people who are phenomenal at talking about light and health as well. See what they have to say. There's a resource on our website called Light, the key to mastering your sleep and energy. It's about 50 pages. It's an e-booklet that I've written, and it's an accumulation of like 70 years of diving into quantum biophysics and circadian biology. And I've written this e-booklet with the intention of offering it to anybody, even a 4-year-old kid, and allowing that person to read it, assimilate it, and know exactly what they need to do in order to elevate their life environment and experience better sleep, more energy, more productivity, etc. So it's a free resource. You can visit www.vivarays.com, VIVARAYS, and you'll be able to download it. I'll also share it with you, Rachel, so you can add it to your description, so people can
Sure.
access straight from there. And yes, we do have some great innovations coming down, and we've been for the past 2 years and a half working on some lighting technologies that we wish to launch pretty soon, and hopefully we can redefine what it means to create a true elevated artificial lighting technology that is designed with the main purpose of elevating humans' health and maintaining their rhythm and maintaining their well-being in mind. So stay posted on this.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll be in anticipation of what's coming down the pipeline. I will definitely put all of that in the bio for you guys, so make sure you look at that. I also have a discount code as well for their products that we can put in there. Thank you again just so much for who you are and what you promote and what you're doing. It's refreshing, it's powerful. And, we know that we're all led into this way to help more people. And so thank you for taking the time to do this again today. And for everyone listening, please like, share, comment this episode. Like he said, listen to it over and over to get those concepts deep into your mind, and you can learn more in regards to this topic and how powerful it really is. But let's go support his company. So please like, share, comment. And thank you everyone for listening. And until next time, we will catch you on the next episode.